Good morning, guys. Luke House here, licensed clinical professional counselor, Gorilla Grief YouTube channel for grieving men and the women that support them, friends that support them, family members that support them. The title, a channel for men in grief, but it really is for everyone. I truly believe that. Here is what I want to talk about today. I had a little bit ulterior agenda, but here's what today's video is for. It's for those of us that are going through it. You know what I mean? Like, you're in that period where we talk about loss, we talk about grief. It hurts, it stings. You wake up with a panic attack. You lost somebody. You had a death. You lost a job. You lost a spouse. You lost a partner, relationship. You know what I mean? It's that part where here's what it is. We become very dysregulated when we experience a loss, and sometimes those periods of dysregulation go on very long, and they're called periods of prolonged grief. But this is not what I'm talking about today. Right now, what I'm talking about is, you're going through something recent. And I think that's why a lot of people look for a channel like what we're offering here is, hey, I'm going through something so difficult. I need whatever I can grasp onto that could possibly help me right now. And so that's what this video is dedicated to today. I was going to ease into kind of my I would call it the gorilla grief idea or system of how do we grieve. And again, gorilla grief means that we're acknowledging grief is messy and grief is complicated, but there are certainly some things that we can do, the people in our lives can do, to make it a lot more manageable. And I'm never going to say you learn how to do grief, but you certainly can transfer these experiences from one to the other, and I think they become more understandable, relatable, hopeful, especially once you start to apply it. But here's the nitty gritty. Here's what I think we need to focus on when we're going through it. Those times when you just can't get regulated. And here's what I broke it down to. I developed an acronym called the PPRRESS acronym. So it's a little off, but it's not. So here you go. What it is, I'm going to put my writing up here. I've done some creative PowerPoints in the past, but the mood struck me. I felt the need to get this out and not take the time to do a PowerPoint. But the PPRRESS is the domains of our life that we need to focus on, and I think double down on, especially when you're going through it, when it's really hard, when you just can't seem to get regulated. So the physical, the top one, physical. We need to focus on, are you getting exercise? Are you getting outside to walk even? But your physical health, getting your checkups. Substance use is part of that physical. Are you drinking, using drugs too much or at all? Here's the thing, I'm not going to throw a huge judgment of that, because I'm going to cover these in depth individually, and that's my goal in the future. But just a word about, substance use and grief. I've been there. It's dysregulating, and the goal when you're going through something that's very dysregulating, you don't want to do things that further dysregulate you. So just a word of caution about substance use when grieving. Really got to be careful with that, because it's hard to get regulated. The second P in the PPRRESS is purpose. We got to have a purpose. That can be hard to grasp onto at times, especially if you're shaken. But really, that's what keeps us moving forward. Again, we're going to dig into that. But if you have a direction, your loss can make a lot more sense in ways that it might not right now, and it will. It will. The R is resilience. Big one. I was asked to give a talk, and it kind of started this whole idea for how do we grieve. I was asked to give a talk for one of the main counseling association meetings, and hey, can you give a talk on resilience? I came up with this presentation. It was an hour and 15 minutes long about basically overcoming or loss through resilience and purpose. And that's that. Resilience, guys, and support people that's your day-to-day stuff that when you're hurting, you don't want to do. Sometimes early on, it's getting out of bed and taking a shower. As time goes on, that's got to be more, but that's going to be your getting to the getting to do your workouts, or getting to make sure you get some exercise, or doing all the other things we're talking about. Doing those things even though we don't feel like it, but because we know they're going to get us to the other side. That's your resilience piece. And we're going to talk more about these all. The second R in the PPRRESS acronym, remember, here's the thing. If we experience a death of a loved one, of course, our goal is to honor their memory, right? They're not all the same, right? Some people die from addiction. Some people die from, my brother died in Iraq. There was a lot of honor and remember, and there still is. The military does a stellar job at that, and there's a lot of healthy community activities, although we could use more, but honor and remember. But I would say even with a relationship or a breakup, even if that turned sour or maybe it just ran its course, but let's talk about one where you feel scorned or jaded, like I didn't deserve that. You got to remember, even in that, there's something that relationship taught you, even if that person was hurtful, that relationship, the thing we get into sticky problems with is if we just try to tell ourselves, oh, it didn't matter. Nothing about that mattered. So I call that cognitive dissonance. There's two forces inside saying, so we gotta honor and remember the good parts while in a healthy way moving on, I think. But when you talk about even a career, right? Like, oh, if I had a career and it suddenly was taken from me before I planned it to, trying to tell myself I hated that career and it meant nothing, but I did it for 20 years. I mean, that's probably not going to get you in a healthy spot for really grieving and integrating that loss and being able to grow. So the E, emotional, that's the counseling part. That's hey, we bring things into loss, right? Our attachment styles, we're going to talk about that. Anxious attachment versus secure attachment. How do you experience when things go away? Somebody dies. I lose a job. A relationship ends. If I have an anxious attachment style, then I have a hard time regulating when something disappears from me. If I'm secure, it may be easier. Think of a death. A secure attached person will be able to go into and out of, I miss this person, and then I know that I have kind of this other stuff that's, I have to make a priority. So, but cognitive behavioral therapy, existential therapy, like it's purpose and meaning therapy. There's all kinds of cool things. Polyvagal. We're going to get into all that, and that's kind of my wheelhouse. Obviously, as a counselor at this point, is how do we emotionally and cognitively kind of work through challenging things. And then the first S, social. We got to have people in our lives. It doesn't mean you have to have tons of people. It means you got to have your key people. And I got to say, those people aren't going to be the same for every type of loss. Some people are going to mean well, but they're going to say things that are hurtful. You get to choose who, what, where, and when, and why you associate with people. I'll tell you, it's probably going to be helpful to have boundaries with some of that too. But in general, if you're going through it and it's hard, this is a time to really draw on your social people, your family, your friends, and again, you can be selective and don't we can't put that all on them. That's what something like counseling can be for, but they are certainly such a huge part of helping us go through loss. And the final one, and this is the one I find the most interesting, it brings up when I ask people about it, spirituality, your final S in the PPRRESS acronym. I'm going to argue we all have a spiritual side. Here's the thing. It doesn't have to mean religion. It can, I was brought up as a Christian. I still share that value. Although I've had I would call it, some changes in my beliefs, in my deconstruction and reconstruction of what I believe, but it's still been impactful. Here's what I'd say. If you have a religion and you're going through a loss, we know that people that believe in something larger than what we have here do a lot better with grief. If you sincerely believe that, I'd say put it to the test. If you have a religion or a spiritual background and you've never been tested, how is it supposed to grow? And you might find things about it that don't make sense, and that's okay. And we'll talk more about that. That can get confusing too, especially when you're going through something really hard. Something like, oh, I believe this, but man, it doesn't feel like it right now, because why would this happen to me? So spiritual, and that's going to be like your time, your daily time to just meditate, whatever version of that is, your prayer time, your connection with God, your connection with the higher power of the universe. I don't care what you believe, particularly for this one right now. It's just that we have it. I'm going to argue that you got to take a look at it. That's it for today, guys. I don't want to do a lot really long videos. I know they're harder to keep attention, but that was the one. Physical, purpose, resilience, honor and remember the R. Emotional, social, and spiritual. I like to rate those, if I'm going through something, especially 1 to 5 every day. How am I doing with those? I'll see you guys next time. In the meantime, keep your heads up, keep the hope, and it will get better. Thank you.